if you're watching this when we get video up.
It's most likely they're watching it now.
Probably. Why wouldn't you watch it as soon as we talk about it?
Well,
We are the most popular web series on JustPlainSony.com.
we are certainly that.
Yeah, that is a award we can definitely not say is a lie. So it's Valentine's Day weekend, and we went to the most romantic movie
Releasing this weekend.
I actually don't know what else is releasing this weekend.
Zoolander 2.
Oh yeah, so yeah, I can pretty much guarantee this is more romantic than Zoolander 2. We went to see Deadpool, which was definitely, I mean, there was some marketing that marketed this as a love story, so, and it does have a love story in it.
It does.
So, I was very apprehensive about this movie because there are a lot of ways that Deadpool has been done really well in the comics. A good mix of, you know, the violence and manicness and humor and the breaking the fourth wall stuff. There's certainly, that has happened in the comics. There's also been just awful Deadpool comics where either they are too serious, like his original conception was, where he was just a random, like, he was basically just Slade Wilson from DC. That's why they named him Wade Wilson.
Yeah, good job there.
Yeah, they were not subtle about the fact that this was a ripoff of a DC character. And
it's
then
almost like, you know, Apocalypse and like...
But no, alright, with Apocalypse and all those, that was specifically, I think it's Kirby, who, he went over and he just remade those characters. He just did the same stuff that he really likes to do. That's slightly different from, we're just going to steal your stuff. But yeah, so Deadpool's been done really well in the comics, but he's also been done really badly, like where people think, oh, we're going to make some funny jokes, and they're not actually funny, and it's a terrible comic. There have been plenty of those, too. So I went into this going, they could really, like, while the Wolverine version, the movie Wolverine version of Deadpool is awful, like really god-awful, I was worried that they would go too far in the other direction where they just made him, like, say Family Guy-esque jokes and then, like, call it a day and just have a bunch of violence. And I did not want to see a movie like that. So when we went into this, I was bracing myself for what could be, like, just 2 hours of bad jokes. And I am more pleasantly surprised than I expected to be, basically.
Yeah, I would say it's about what I expected, maybe a little bit less than what I expected. I kind of had a little bit higher hopes for this movie, but yeah, it sort of maybe just fell short of my expectations.
I would just brace myself for, like, a way more bad jokes than they had. And the way I put it on Twitter when we got out of the theater was there were more jokes that I liked than I disliked. But, that being said, that the jokes that I disliked were just really abysmally bad. Like, no, people didn't laugh. Our theater was pretty full, and it was a big theater, and there were some jokes where literally no one laughed at them.
Yeah, there were a lot of those, and and when things were funny, it wasn't like raucous laughter either.
I don't know, I laughed. There were a few bits that made me legitimately I think I actually did the, like, laughing, clapping thing where I was like, there were a few of those. So I will give the movie credit that I was not expecting to have any of those. So the movie is very much, it is sectionally, what am I thinking of? Like, partially. It's partially his origin story. But it also is, I think it was smart that they had the origin cut in and out throughout the entire movie, more or less, until you're basically caught up.
Really? To me, it kind of made that action scene seem like it took forever.
It did take forever. But the other thing, though, is that I'm glad that we didn't have a movie where the first, like, 45 minutes is the backstory stuff.
Yeah, I can appreciate that, but they needed to get out of that action scene with them on the freeway. Yeah,
that was, like, really long.
That took forever.
It doesn't help that we saw a lot of that in the trailers already. That was largely, like, that first trailer thing, or, like, the first, like, their first like teaser thing that they did. And so it doesn't help that as someone who has seen that sequence a lot, it's not nearly as interesting.
Yeah.
Like, sorry, maybe it was good then, but also, like, the violence was the least favorite thing about this movie. I knew it was coming. I knew it was going to happen, especially that they made a big deal about getting the R rating. But at the same time, it just was, like, the thing that was least interesting to me.
I guess, but I mean, like, some of it was okay. I think a lot of times they did that thing where the camera's so super up close that you sort of miss a lot of what's going on in the action.
Yeah, well, and we were also sitting fairly close because it was already pretty packed by the time we got there, so we did the farthest back we could, which was really only like 6.
Third row.
Third row? Were we in third row?
Yeah.
So it was also really hard because we were looking kind of up. But, yeah, I mean, again, I just I don't need to see a guy's head get sliced off. And we definitely saw that multiple times in this movie.
Saw that multiple times, but like when they were fighting in the SUV, which was the
that was really close, and it didn't feel like
that was really close, and you could barely tell what was happening to people.
Yeah, I will say something that we had talked about when we were walking out was there isn't a lot of gunfire in this movie, and the reason why Mike found out earlier was because their budget
right after they got greenlit, their budget got slashed, so they took out a lot of the gun violence.
So that means that a lot of it was like in the highway scene. One of the better parts of the highway scene is the fact that he has 12 bullets and he has to make a lot of them count. And so his shots need to be better. It's not like tons and tons of gunfire. And in that way, it's actually one of the things where their limitations for filmmaking actually made the movie better, because that scene would have just been him shooting people. And it would have been really boring.
Yes.
And this made it actually where he had a challenge. Instead of him being able to fire off tons and tons of rounds, he had to
use his ammo conservatively.
Yeah. And then later on, one of the big bits is that he packs like every single gun he owns in this big showdown, puts it in his Hello Kitty bag.
Oh, was it Hello Kitty?
I think it was Hello Kitty.
I saw the pink details in it, but I didn't see what it was.
Yeah, I believe it was Hello Kitty. And so he goes and he's doing like the slow motion walk with his allies, and they're like, "Wait, where's your bag?" And then he realized he left it in the taxi, which has already driven away, and he can't get a hold of the taxi driver. So they was like, "Well, I guess I'm just using my katanas." So it was another one where it's like, oh, he has an actual challenge, and he has way less
limitations.
He has way more limitations. And if the movie had a big budget for like firearms and stuff, it would have been way less entertaining.
I think what makes him unique is, in comparison to the movie universes, is that he has those katanas. Because in the rest of the movie universes, everyone has guns.
Yeah,
I think it would have made it a lot more generic if they went the route of having a lot of guns.
Sorry. I'm trying to think where we should go from talking here. I'll say this much. Let's talk about the love interest, who is played by, I know who she's played by, I can't just...
Baccarin.
Yeah, I just can't find her. Morena Baccarin, who is... She's doing a ton of stuff. She's on Gotham right now, and I think she's on like a few other things. A few other shows, and she's doing voiceover work. She's doing just a ton of stuff. You coming back?
Yes.
Okay.
Keep going.
Okay. So, I will say this much. They could have cast someone and made her very one-dimensional. She has so much chemistry with Ryan Reynolds that even some of their more, like, stereotypical boy meets girl stuff, and the fact that she's really, like... and she is a sex worker. There's a lot of things that could have gone really awry in that, and she really sells the character as like a fully fleshed out human being who has her own shit going down, and you know what I mean? There's a lot of, and I felt like the chemistry between them, even with it being some stereotypical...
I didn't really buy it though in that first scene with her.
No, but I like the fact that you see them actually have like a long-term relationship. They don't just cut from that first scene to them suddenly being domestic.
Yeah.
which I like a lot. And like again, the actress has so much personality that I felt like so much. If they cast a lesser actress in it, I wouldn't be as connected. So they have this whole thing, and she is. I guess she's a stripper, but they also say that she actually is. That she's also
a prostitute.
Yeah, that she also like actually has sex for money, even though there's so much of them trying to one up each other on who had the worst life. There was that whole bit there that I was like, I'm not even entirely sure what her actual deal is, but that's the writing. But no, she and Ryan Reynolds have like a lot of really good chemistry. You see a montage of them having sex a lot, like over on like holidays, including International Women's Day, in which she totally pegs him. But, and this was what I was telling Mike, and I'm like, you know what, I would have given the movie so much credit for doing that if they didn't end the scene with him like going, nope, I don't want to do this. And I was like, really, you couldn't have just ended it with, they do so much other raunchy stuff. Him as Deadpool does so much crazy stuff. You couldn't have that one thing
and just leave it be.
Like, why even?
You're going the length to do the joke.
You're doing a length to do the joke. Just cut it before that part where he's like, oh, nope. I want to hope that I'm just gonna pretend like they were having like a role play session and their safe word wasn't no, it was something else. That's how I'm justifying that in my head. But yeah, that really annoyed me because I was like, you could have had a great moment and it would have been actually, but no, but what? Like you don't want to offend the like straight fanboys in the audience? Is that it? Because like you have enough the other thing about this movie is that there's a legitimate trans misogynistic joke in it that was definitely where I knew about it beforehand. I was just like, you had to keep that in. Where he asks one of the villains who's a woman if she has a dick, and it wasn't needed. No one laughed at it. That's the thing. That's one of those jokes no one laughed at, and so I was like, good job, movie. You had to include that in there. And yeah, that annoyed me.
And then the joke falls flat.
It falls really flat. And then there were other.
And that's not the only joke that falls flat.
Yeah, there were a lot of other jokes. There were a lot of other jokes where he I don't know if they would be called gay jokes, but where he's talking about like people's genitalia and like other random stuff. Where I'm just like, it's not really that funny. Like he's supposed to be this really funny. Funny, off the wall, sort of cartoonish, but a lot of the jokes weren't that good.
Yeah.
So, but I will say that like I know that there were some jokes that were cut out from the trailers that I thought were just awful. So I appreciate the editor for cutting out some of that stuff. It was clearly fairly well edited for those kinds of
I think also it's clearly one of those movies where they had
riffs,
like 4 or 5 takes of a single line,
and then they improv'd it and stuff.
Well, no, like they had 4 or 5 different takes, and they went with one of the lines that they went with.
Yeah.
You know, like each one had like 4 or 5 different jokes.
Yeah. Well, there's that bit where what's his face? We have up the cast list, but it keeps going into sleep mode, and then we have to put in the password for the tablet. I don't know if you can see the tablet, but it's like right here. T.J. Miller, who is, by the way, in Big Hero 6, so another like Marvel crossover thing. But he actually is not bad. This is probably one of his better roles because he's fairly low key in it. But he plays like Wade's friend and a bar owner who kind of like hooks people, bad guy or like vigilantes up with assassin work and stuff.
Yeah.
And
see the Assassin's Bar.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, it's kind of with like a warm heart. But he sees Wade's face, and then like in the trailers, he makes like 5 different really bad jokes. And this one, he only makes one bad joke. Mm-hmm. So, or like maybe 2.
Well,
I think
he does it twice.
Yeah, he does it twice. But like in the trailer, it's like it goes on forever. I'm like, if this is actually how the actual movie goes, I am going to hate this movie.
Yeah.
And so it feels like they did a good job of cutting back some of the lamer jokes, and I can appreciate that. So I think we should bring up just how Deadpool is in general, and I feel like they do hit on what makes Deadpool interesting in the comics.
Yes.
There's a lot of manic behavior. There's also a lot of good-naturedness about the character, even though he's kind of a jerk sometimes.
Yes.
But so I like that. I like the fact that they got a lot of his gleeful personality out of this movie. I also like the fact that before he becomes Deadpool, while they hint at like the horrible things he did as a mercenary for like I'm guessing like some government organization, what he's doing right before he gets the diagnosis for cancer, when he meets his girlfriend that he ends up falling in love with, is he's helping people for like small amounts of money to help them out and hurt bad guys. So like we first see
just people who are being dicks.
Yeah, basically. So there's a guy who is harassing this girl and stalking her, and he ends up
threatening the boyfriend or the guy.
Threatening the guy for I think he said that like oh yeah, she doesn't have a lot of money, but I have a soft heart, and so that's me. This is me telling you, you are not going to be around her anymore. You are not going to you are not going to look at her. You're not going to be around her, or else I will come back for you. And then when he meets his the girlfriend, a guy grabs her ass, and he immediately. Now, granted, she takes care of herself in a kind of stereotypical way, where it's like, oh, she can handle herself. But I like the fact that Wade's immediate response is, hold on, you don't get to do. You're going to apologize to her right now. And I like the fact that they set him up as being alright, I'm going to say it. He has some very feminist actions at the beginning of this movie. And I like that about that. And then later on, another kind of good woman moment is when I don't even know who the bad lady's name was. Do you remember?
Angel?
No, that wasn't Angel. Oh, maybe it was Angel Dust. Okay, who was Gina Carano, who's been in like a ton of things, but she's fighting Colossus. Oh yeah, Colossus is in this movie. We haven't mentioned him yet, but she's fighting Colossus, and she gets thrown off, and he goes after her, and then he realizes that her outfit had moved and her breast was showing. And they did a smart thing with this. So he's holding up his hands, and he just happens to be like blocking the boob shot. And he goes, "Oh no, you should,
Cover up."
Yeah." And she goes, "Oh, that's so nice." And then she like punches him in the dick, and they start fighting again.
Well, he's down for a moment.
Yeah. But my point is, because she's super strong. But my point is that when the main bad guy mentions Angel got super strength, I thought they meant Angel the Mutant, and I'm like, whoa, they're tying in Angel? That's amazing.
No, I realized that she was named Angel.
Okay. Yeah, I did not catch that at all. So, I was like, holy crap, they're like, because like Angel, especially like Angel's like modifications and stuff, that happens in the Apocalypse in the Apocalypse story. So I was thinking like, holy shit, they're like connecting in the Apocalypse movie? That's crazy. No, I was wrong. Anyway, but I really like the fact that there is female nudity in this movie, but all the female nudity is either it's in the love scene with the girlfriend, and you also see them go to her work, which is a strip club. But for both of those, you can at least say that the women
are consensually nude.
Yeah, they're nude either for their job or because they're with their significant other. So that if the shot had been shown of the villain having her breasts exposed, that would have been, I would have been really angry. The fact that they hid it and he was, Colossus, being a decent human being, looks away because it is like, that was a great moment. And I'll give the movie props for that. That, like, all the female nudity in this are from women who are consensually being naked.
Yeah.
So that was cool. And also that there is a lot of sex work shown in the movie, and it's not vilified or punished, which I thought was fine. I mean, it's a sleazy club, but it never is like, it's never like the girlfriend is never punished specifically for being a sex worker, and Wade is super cool with it. He's like, it never comes up about like him wanting her to quit or anything. Like I don't know. Like there's a lot of nice touches to this movie as far as some of the sexual politics, but there's also the fact that, and this is said in the trailer, so I don't see it as a spoiler, the fact that she gets kidnapped and she's a damsel in distress.
Yeah.
And that's annoying. And it's something that I knew was going to happen in this movie, but it's still annoying. You know?
Yep.
And it was, and they do some nice stuff where she does, it's not that she's completely passive in those scenes, but it's still one of those things where you're setting up this trope that happens in like all of these movies where the main female character is one that is largely a supportive partner to the hero, and then she gets used as the bait, and
the hero has to come
rescue her. And like, can you do anything else? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, the fact that it happened, I was kind of thinking that the movie was going to make a joke about that.
Yeah, or at least lampshaded or something, and I don't think they did enough of that. It was very using the trope just as it is. Like I said, she does. It's not that she's completely passive in those scenes, so I can see how some people could let it slide more, but it's still annoying that that's what they used. They didn't have to. They could have gone around it. So yeah, that's where we are with a lot of this stuff. We have not talked much about the X-Men connection besides mentioning that Colossus was in this. It's interesting because Fox owns the rights to the X-Men movies.
Yes, and Deadpool.
And so I wasn't sure, but because they only have those two things, I wasn't sure how much they were going to connect it to X-Men at all.
Well, they also have Fantastic Four, and they have...
Did they have Fantastic Four?
No, yeah, they have Fantastic Four.
But Sony has Spider-Man.
Sony has Spider-Man. But
it was interesting because they actually do, like, you see the Xavier
Institute.
You see, like, the front of it. Like
gifted youngsters.
Yeah, like, the sign is there. It's the same sign from the other movies.
It's the same house.
Yeah, it's the same house. And they do make a particularly, like, a couple of...
great jokes
about that. Great jokes about the...
Since we are pre-spoilers here.
Yeah, we'll talk.
Not ruin any
yeah, but there are quite a few, besides the fourth wall of him just talking to the screen, there are quite a few references to the X-Men franchise. Lots of Hugh Jackman references.
Yes.
Almost one too many, I think.
Yeah.
Just a little, I mean, we get it, okay?
I kind of like the last one they did, but I kind of wish they would cut back on the middle ones.
Yeah. So, I'm trying to think, there's, the other thing I will say is that the bad guy felt like it was...
generic?
He was generic, but I felt like they did a good job of at least showing him as, like, truly cruel and...
Yeah.
Like, they did a good job of at least setting him up to be, like, where you could see him basically being without, like, any reservations as far as hurting innocent people.
Yeah.
And you get why Wade hates him so much.
Yes.
So... it is fairly generic, though. It's not necessarily interesting, but I felt like it worked for this movie. And again, like, the amount of hatred that Wade has for this guy feels completely justified.
Yeah.
So, in that case, I felt like it worked. I'm trying to think I'm looking at the cast list. Oh, and then we have, Stefan Kapacik. I'm gonna go there really quick. Playing the voice of
Colossus.
I don't recognize anything in particular
A lot
from
of
him.
foreign stuff. It was
Yeah. Yeah, I don't recognize much from him. He was good. He was very Russian, which isn't something we've seen in movie Colossus
Ever.
ever. It really makes me want to see Magic now because his sister. And it makes me remember though, like how much the X-Men franchise has kind of, what's the word I'm thinking of, has not used its it has so much potential to use these really cool different X-Men characters, and they really have done very little of that.
So the one they do
is Negasonic Teenage Warhead, whose very name, like, it is just a running gag throughout the comics and in this movie that she has a terrible name, because it was done in 2001 when like people were still extreme.
A little bit.
Brianna Hildebrand plays her. She's actually 19, so she's still a teenager, and she does play the teenage like character very well.
Yeah, but they don't give her much.
They don't give her much, but I thought she did good with what she was given. Her superpower was really cool, but again, she does it so late in the movie. But I also like the fact that she just playing that like sullen teenager who just does not give a shit about Deadpool and kind of thinks he's lame, which I liked. And yeah, when Deadpool finds out her name, he's like, "Oh my God, that's such a good name! Can I have your name? I want your name."
Can we trade?
Can we trade? So yeah, and then like I said, there was a lot of connections to the X-Men franchise, and it makes me wonder how much they're going to connect it into.
Probably if this movie's a success,
which
you
it's
might
going to
see
be.
him show up in X-Men movies after Apocalypse.
Yeah, we got spoilers actually for some stuff that was hinted at in the movie, so we'll have to do that in spoilers. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we haven't mentioned within the... I will say, if you're a fan of Deadpool, you're going to want to go to the movie. I think it's a good enough... It's worth your money if you're a fan of him. If you're a fan of, like, a lot of violence, yeah, it's okay. Like, even the violence in this, there's nothing really super interesting about it.
No.
Not really. But, I mean, if you're a fan of the violence, and it's not... Or if you're a fan of, like, violent action movies in general... like, you'll probably think it's fine. If you're not a particular fan of Deadpool, but you don't mind him, that's probably, like, a rental or, like, a really late matinee where, like, it's in one of those theaters that's, like, $5. I think that's completely fair. I don't, like I said...
Also, we didn't talk about this, but Regal Cinemas, $18 for a ticket?
Yeah, that's
just
ridiculous.
For a standard screen movie? $18?
Is that just for, like, the holiday weekend?
I don't know what it is, but
that's
Regal
ridiculous.
Was $18 for a standard screen ticket.
I honestly think that our Star Wars...
Yeah, when we saw Star Wars, it was cheaper than that. And that was an IMAX 3D.
And it was the first day.
Yeah.
So I don't understand that, but... I don't know, we'll just have to see. We might have to find another theater. We ended up going to one downtown, which is why we're here, because we were going to drive to the Regal one, and then do the driving home the movie in the car, but we didn't want to have to deal with that.
Yeah, no.
So, I'm trying to think there's anything else off the top of my head that is... It was entertaining. It was better than I expected, but not, like, it didn't blow me away. Big fans of the comic will probably like it. But everybody else, maybe it's a rental.
I can agree with that. It was sort of like it's an okay movie. I would probably see it in theaters. I still would recommend to see it in theaters. Unless you're not a super fan of, like, the comic book movies. So
yeah.
Even then, it's probably a rental.
Okay. So with that, are you good with spoilers?
Yeah, good with spoilers.
Right, spoilers. So spoilers. Should we get to like the ending spoiler first, since?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So first of all, maybe my favorite joke of the movie, just because it was so well done, is the ending teaser or the ending, like the thing after the credits, the after credits scene. It is a shot by shot, like, or a moment by moment scene recreation of the last moment in Ferris Bueller's Day Off when Ferris comes out in like a robe and he's like, "Are you people still here? Go home." Oh, you think it's like, oh no, go home. We're not doing like a teaser. Samuel L. Jackson doesn't even come in here and try to offer me a team. No, go home. Which I thought, and it was great. It was like, it was the same. I would have to actually look at the Ferris Bueller scene, but it looked suspiciously like even before he came out in the robe, I was like, oh my god, I know exactly where they're going with this.
To be fair, because it was Deadpool in his mask, the entire thing could have been totally digital. Recreated.
That's true. That could have been it. But I'm just impressed that they went with this. And it's like, and again, it's one of those things where it's not like they said, we're doing a Ferris Bueller thing. Like, they didn't, like, put a big sign to it. It was just they did it, and people who got the joke would get the joke. And I was just like, good job. So it cuts away, and then it cuts back, and it goes, okay, I can tell you this. We're going to have Cable in the sequel.
Yeah.
We don't know who he's cast yet, but, like, that's what's going to happen. Cable's going to be in the sequel.
Someone with a flat head.
Yeah, someone flat head, maybe, like, Dolph Lundgren or someone else.
Keira Knightley.
Keira Knightley, she has great range. And you know what? I did like the fact that they said that joke, but it didn't come off as transphobic, because it wasn't like, oh, she's butch enough. It's that, no, she has great range. She could do it. So I just felt like that was them leaping over what could have been a bad joke.
Yeah.
So Cable is apparently going to be in the next movie, and I'm pretty sure they're going to make a shit ton of money off of this, and they're going to make another movie.
I'm pretty sure they'll make another one.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that they're going to make some money back on this one.
Yeah. I'm trying to think what any of the other spoilers is. I mean, we can talk about the Stan Lee. He is a stripper announcer. DJ. Which I don't need to think of creepy old men being the stripper DJ. I don't need to think about that. But thank you, Stan Lee. You had to go in there.
Yeah.
So
it was an okay cameo, not my favorite.
It wasn't my favorite either. Let me think of the other spoilers. Well, the other spoilers are like the X-Men references, which is the first one was really funny, where like, we are going to, so it's Colossus, saying, we are going to take you to Professor Xavier. He will convince you to join X-Men. And he goes, which Xavier? Or Stewart
or McElroy.
It's not McElroy.
No, that's the golfer. See, that's why I know that I messed up.
I'm gonna look.
The tablet here is on the IMDb.
I know, but you already have it. Favorite actor. I have my laptop on the floor. Alright, this is helping me. James McAvoy.
I was close.
You were close. But that was the thing, you got so close that I couldn't think of what the actual correct name was. But he goes, yeah, Stewart is it McAvoy? McAvoy? But he says like, Stewart, they're both, or like, I can't keep them apart.
You guys have really screwed around with timeline.
Yeah, I have no idea where we are in the timeline. That was what it was. I have no idea where we are in the timeline.
I can't keep it straight.
And there was another, and then there were a few other, like, breaking the fourth wall, where he broke the fourth wall in the fourth wall, and he mentioned it to people, to the screen. And then there was a part where he accidentally flung gum on the camera, and he had to wipe it off. And I was like, all right, and that was like the first joke of the whole. That was a good
fourth wall break.
Yeah, that was like one of the first jokes of the whole movie, and I was just like, okay, we get it. We get what you're trying to say. And then, so he goes to the Xavier Mansion when he needs backup to save his girlfriend. And so the girl opens up, and he's like, okay, we need your, I need your help, blah, blah. And you hear Colossus go, is that
Deadpool?
Is that Deadpool? And he ends up saying something along the lines of like, Man, it's really weird how you two seem to be the only people at the Xavier Mansion. It's almost as if the filmmakers couldn't afford to get any other actors to reprise their roles. And then it cuts to the next scene.
Yeah.
Which again, like, okay, I'll give you that. There are a lot of condescending jokes about Ryan Reynolds. The opening shots of the movie were specifically mocking Green Lantern. And, like, I forget, there was, like, one other one that was...
Yeah, that opening credits sequence was pretty funny. How they used the...
Yeah, instead of the actual...
actors' names, they just described their characters
like,
in a generic...
overpaid lead actor, the love interest, CGI character, moody teenager, gratuitous cameo... and then it was like, I think they said the producers, and they were like, you know, produced by crappy producers, and then, like, written by the greatest, or the saviors of this movie. And I'm thinking, like, okay, the movie knows that, like, the writers don't actually write the credit sequence, right? Like, they don't actually type out the actual credits.
No. If someone was going to get praise in their thing, it probably would have been the CGI animator who animated that.
Yeah,
sequence.
exactly. But it was still pretty good. And the whole time it's like a slow motion of that, and that's, I think, another thing. I get because there's like the slow motion panning through like this, like the car that crashed. But then we see it later. Then we have to see it again as they're like fast forwarding through it. And I'm like, this is like my least favorite scene in the whole movie, and yet you're making me watch it three different times.
That freeway scene, because it sticks around for so long, it's the worst part of the movie. Because it just stays there forever, and it feels
it's not
like
really,
you're
and it's
there
just
forever.
violence, and it's like it's not very interesting. So
at least the flashbacks move to different locations.
Yeah. As far as also his, and I think we could have also mentioned this without spoilers, but as far as his, like his backstory of being tortured and stuff, I thought that actually was done pretty well. Like, I don't know, it was convincing. You get to see him actually go through a lot of the stuff. I thought that it worked well enough, and again, it worked well enough because it's also cut back and forth between actual funny moments. Because if that didn't happen, then his tragic backstory would just be like 30 or 40 minutes of slogging, you know.
Slogging the movie down, waiting for him to become Deadpool.
Oh, it would have been, that's basically the problem with the Daredevil movie.
Yeah.
Is that it took so long to get him to actually be Daredevil that by that time it just felt like a wait.
Yeah, I like doing the backstory in flashback, but really you have to change the present scene.
Yeah, that got really annoying. So besides that, again, I think Ryan Reynolds does a really good job of selling the character. The fact that he does have moments where he's not completely, like, zany.
Yeah.
There's a lot of melancholy and catharsis in there, too. But he also does the stupid thing of, she can't see me, I'm a monster now. And it's like, oh my god. Just suck it up. You know that she still loves you. That was actually one of the better lines comes from her when she when she finally gets rescued, and the bad guy is dead, and she gets mad at him and punches him twice because she's so mad that he just left to do this experiment, and she didn't know what was going on with him. And so when she finally sees his face, actually, yeah, that was that last Hugh Jackman joke where she pulls off, and then you realize he's wearing another like a face mask. No, he cut out the sexiest man alive, Hugh Jackman picture, because. And he was wearing that. He was presumably wearing that the entire time of the fight scene.
You see him pack the magazine earlier.
Yeah, but no, I mean, no, because it was just dumping out with everything else. So I thought that was just a reference to that. Yeah. As if that was going to be like, oh, she'll just see that face, it'll be fine. And so then she sees the face, And then she says one of the better lines in the movie. And again, the movie does a really good job of not having her just be the thing that gets Wade sex. You know what I mean? You see her actually being like an enjoyer of sex a lot in this movie and getting to do a lot of, like, it doesn't feel like she's just there to satisfy Wade, which again makes me feel like she has a lot more depth to her than a lot of other female character love interests in other action movies. Yeah, she actually gets to have, like, she gets to kind of be her own person in that way. I'm giving this movie a lot of credit for it, but this is the reason why. Because she says to him, like, you know, okay, it's going to take some adjustment, and I'm probably going to have to drink a little bit, but I could definitely see that being a face that I sit on. And he's like, oh. So, again, it was a good moment, but it was also a moment where it's clearly, like, their relationship is full of them both enjoying sex equally, which is a thing you don't get to see a lot in movies. So I will give it credit for that.
And truth be told, that's basically what their relationship was built on when they started in the movie.
Yeah, exactly. But you get the sense, and they talk about it, that, like, you get the sense that the reason why they're together isn't just because he is the main character of the movie, but because they're both really kind of
fucked up people.
Yeah, they're really screwed up people who feel like they fit together really well and that their dynamic works. And I can really appreciate the fact that they tried really hard to sell you on that relationship. And I think it does a lot better than it could have. It could have been a really bland relationship, and I thought that they did better than most action movies that try to be more serious do.
Yeah.
But again, it's because that actress is so good. Like, she's so talented. And I hope that she gets to not get kidnapped in the sequel. If she gets kidnapped in the sequel or sidelined completely, I will be very annoyed.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. So I'm not giving you a complete pass movie, but I am giving you as long as you don't do this again, I will at least be like, fine, you did this once. You did this cliche damsel in distress, her getting used because he has his heart set on her, and the bad guy knows it, blah, 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 blah.
Things Deadpool probably should have definitely cracked fourth wall jokes about.
Yes, if he had actually cracked the fourth wall jokes. Like, even going like, how dare you make her into a damsel in distress? That's my girlfriend. My girlfriend doesn't get to be a damsel in distress. How dare you?
Not in my movie.
Yeah, not in my movie. She does, I will say this much, she does actually get herself out of the dangerous, like, there's this, like, air-sucking machine, and Wade puts one of his katanas through the glass, so it does help her actually breathe, but then she's the one who actually cuts her.
She frees herself.
Yeah, she frees herself, and then she ends up stabbing the bad guy. It does not stop him, but it stops him enough that it stops him from...
Well, she figured it would stop him. She didn't know that he would survive a stab
Yeah,
to the chest.
Exactly. But she at least is proactive enough to, like, help Wade stop him and get herself out of the actual machine she was in. And again, we also get to see Nega Teenage Warhead?
Negasonic Teenage Warhead.
Negasonic Teenage Warhead. Yeah. It was the early 2000s. All the other names were taken.
Negasonic's taken, Warhead's taken. So, you just combine
them. And, yeah, exactly. But no, she does have that great moment of saving Colossus, so that was cool.
Yeah.
Again, she doesn't get to do a lot, and I'm hoping maybe she comes back for the sequel, because I thought that she had some really interesting stuff. It's just that she started so late that, but she had a cool outfit. I loved that. I loved her, like, whole look. She had, like, a buzzed head, and she was kind of stockier, and she had the like yellow costume. She actually got to wear an X-Man got to wear a yellow costume instead of, like, all black and leather and shit. Yeah. That's amazing. Do you know how so few times do you actually get to see people wearing that costume?
I kind of would have dug a black accent around the collar so that the yellow sort of...
Yeah, but
like, because when they had the tight shot on, like, from chest high, it looked like she was just wearing a yellow...
Yeah, but I still liked the amount of color. That was really good.
Yeah.
So besides that,
maybe have the collar and then a little bit V down so that it
Yeah.
looked like an X. Rather
Yeah,
than
maybe. So, I thought it was, like we said before, spoilers, I thought it was good. It was better than I expected. I don't know if I would ever watch it again.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd watch it again either. It's just... Maybe it's just too generic. And
But I enjoyed
enough
it
jokes
more.
fell flat.
Yeah, there were a lot of jokes that, like, we haven't mentioned them because I don't remember them.
Yeah, I know.
There were a lot of unmemorable jokes in this. But there were a lot of jokes that I actually laughed at.
There are a lot of laughable jokes. There were a lot of good jokes. And that's what sells this movie.
Oh, the other thing we can talk about is there's this blind black lady that Wade is living with, who in the trailer is like, he puts her down in like a really like unnecessary way. And here it's way more back and forth, and he's not nearly as like nasty to her. And there's a sense that they actually get along. She
gives to him just as much as he gives to her.
Yeah, exactly. And also he's pretty he's actually pretty affectionate with her, and he cares about her. But that wasn't too bad of a part. Like, I didn't mind that very much.
It looked worse in the trailer than
it does. I do. And like I said, I think that the editor did a really good job of taking out the parts that did not work to make it way funnier. But there were still parts that just weren't that funny. But again, like, I just, some of that humor just fell flat for me. But other parts didn't. Like I said, I think there were more jokes that I liked than jokes I didn't like. But the jokes I did not like, it just really, like, nothing. I felt nothing.
Yeah.
It was just like, oh. And when those happened...
And they weren't even memorable. Like,
they weren't, because I don't even remember them. They were mostly, like, about cocksucking or random, like...
There was that joke thing that was running about blowjobs, the drink.
Yeah, that wasn't funny at all.
Then I don't know why they started that bar fight. I don't know.
Oh, I think it was because there was a running bet. You know, there was a running bet, and he was trying to get one of the guys to kill the other guy.
Okay.
And that was setting up the whole Deadpool thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's even the thing that was why that happened, or why he was called that in the comic. That was actually one of the funnier jokes, was when he's figuring out, so like they had this running dead pool, so like a pool of, like a betting pool for who among their regulars were gonna die. And so when Wade comes back and his bartender friend says like, oh man, I just realized I won all that money when you died in the dead pool, and he realizes, oh, that's what I'll be called, Captain Deadpool. And there's that moment of like quiet, and his friend is just looking at him skeptically. He goes, should I just call it Deadpool? Just Deadpool. Okay, I'll just call myself Deadpool. And I actually laughed quite a bit at that, because he's so, like, it's that moment where you just expect him to just say the word, and then he...
Also, one of the jokes that was, like, funny, like, maybe once or twice, and it was funnier, like, once or twice later than it was the first time you heard it, was the reason my suit's red, because I don't want it, the bleeding thing and the blood. Like, the first one, in the highway scene, because we've seen it in the trailer, it's not really that funny. And it's not that funny, And it's the first time you see it, but then later on, they do it, and then you realize that he's actually,
that's literally, he used to wear, like, a white
suit.
Yeah, and then who became his roommate was just like, why don't you just...
wear red.
Why don't you just wear red, you dumbass? Which is weird, because, like, she's facing away and blind.
And he's using one of those little tiny
the little pen things. To get out all that. I'm like, just throw it away, man.
It's not worth it.
It's not worth it. Largely there was a lot that I liked about it. It was more than I expected. And I think, again, if you're a fan of the character, except for a few questionable jokes that I was just like, you really should have just cut that, I think you're going to like it.
Yeah,
so...
it's reasonably solid.
Yeah, and like I said, you have to go into... I do think it's one of those movies you have to go into wanting to see a movie about Deadpool. Because if you don't, you're probably not going to like it, which is fine. And just brace yourself for a few kind of unfunny moments. Because it doesn't hit every single note.
Yeah, and that action scene, that takes forever.
Yeah, that's annoying. And again, uber violence doesn't usually do anything for me. And this one just felt like, I mean, I get it. It's supposed to be gratuitous because it's Deadpool, but it's like this isn't interesting to me.
Yeah, it feels very generic, the violence it does.
Yeah, it really does. And yeah,
Like-
some of it's
like-
cartoony, and I get that that's what they were going for, but like it's not. A lot of
if
it's
you're
not.
gonna do stylized Deadpool violence, like ultra violence, I think you have to go full like Quentin Tarantino-esque and make it really bloody and just go over the top with it, because that would be at least appropriate for Deadpool.
That is true.
And it would be appropriate for the comic, and it would work. You could do, Quentin Tarantino levels of uber violence, and the uber, like Quentin Tarantino, he puts a shower head there, the shower of blood.
Yeah.
You know
what is interesting though, and I'm just because we keep talking about the potential for them to cross over with X-Men. The thing is, you know who Cable is, right?
Huh.
Cable is it's because it's convoluted because it's X-Men, but Cable is the son of the clone of Jean Grey and Scott Summers, who was then sent into the future to be raised in the future and then came back
in
time. Even though I think at some point he's actually raised then by Jean Grey and by Scott Summers, because again, X-Men. But yeah, so Cable is, and this is technically this is a spoiler, but this is like a 20-year spoiler. But yes, Cable is their son, and so if Cable's gonna be in there, are they gonna bring up the X-Men a lot? Are they going to? I don't know. I feel like Fox has an opportunity here to do a lot more expanding on
their universe.
Yeah, they do. They really can.
I think Apocalypse is sort of going to lightly reboot their universe.
Well, I mean, it already did with Days of Future Past.
I know, but I mean, I think it's going to lightly reboot.
My whole thing, this is what I want from the Fox superhero stuff. I want them to utilize Storm, really utilize her, and not just have her be a pawn in Apocalypse's thing, but actually give her stuff to do this time. And I want them to expand into, if they can do New Mutants, I know that they mentioned maybe doing a TV show. If they can do New Mutants, do some form of that with actual, with young teenagers with these characters, but expand into other characters that they've done. And don't kill them all off, because that's been their problem. They
show these mutants, some of them show up and then they just die.
Oh my god, nothing makes me angrier than the third X-Men movie where they establish all these new kind of not necessarily bad guys, but not necessarily good guy mutants, and then they're just all dissolved by Jean Grey's evil powers. And it's ridiculously frustrating to watch them be well, there they are, there they go, just
up in smoke.
Oh, up in smoke. So with that, I think I'm ready. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm done.
It was okay. Pretty enjoyable. Go see it if you are a diehard fan.
Well, I'm sure they've already seen it.
Probably. But if you haven't gotten to see it yet and you're you really wanted to wait for our... I think...
I'm sorry.
Yeah, what? That they trust in us so much?
Yes, I know. I'm extremely sorry that you trust in us so much.
That's sad. That's mean to us.
I know.
Okay. I think we're done. See you at justplainsomething.com, and we'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.